Welcome to Check the Energy podcast. I'm your host, Vanessa Smith, and this is a special series, the Vitality series, where we get to go in depth, deep dive, and really expansive in terms of a consciousness approach to creating and optimizing your vitality. So, as you can see, I have this beautiful guest with me, Dr. Kristian Strang. Yes, did I pronounce correct? Okay, good. And I always love to start these off with sharing a bit more about the relationship, the connection, and how I came to say, yes, please be on this podcast. And so I want to share a little bit of my point of view and perspective on her. And then I'll turn it over to her and let her introduce herself. And then we're just going to jump in and go from there and see where the conversation and the energy really leads us. So she popped into my world, I'd say within the last month, and was one of the first to apply and respond to my request for really connecting with healers that are operating from a more new paradigm perspective, expanded consciousness context, especially when it comes to vitality. And I tell you, I felt the warmth, the enthusiasm, the groundedness, and I would say both the breadth and the depth of what she offers in the sentence that I read from her. I mean, it poured through energetically, and I am admittedly a bit picky. I think there's some wonderful people out there, but for me, it really comes down to, can you take these larger esoteric concepts and really bring them to more people in a very embodied way, in a very kind of inner union, deep rootedness kind of way. And I found that in her application and in her website. And I try not to get too in depth in other people's sites because I just want the conversation to go where it goes. And I have to admit, I got a little delightfully lost in her website. So I really would encourage you to go check it out as well, because I kept reading and going, yes, 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 this is it. So thank you for being here. I really appreciate your presence and super looking forward to this conversation. Now I'm going to turn it over to you and would love for you to introduce yourself.
Oh my goddess, Vanessa, I have like tears. That was so beautiful. And I loved hearing about your experience because I didn't know. And also, what you don't know on the other side for me is that literally like 2 days before
Mm.
I saw your post, Spirit said to me, it's time to go back and do some podcast interviews. I did a lot in 2020 and 2021 because of all the shifts that were happening, and we just needed high vibrational content out of there. I really haven't done anything. And then they gave me the guidance, like, it's time. And then I literally saw your post and I felt your energy and I was like, this is a match. Okay, let's go. So I'm just so thrilled that we are able to come together. As I said in one of our email exchanges, I feel like I already know you, even though we don't at all, on a physical level. So my name is Dr. Kristian, as Vanessa introduced me, and I am a mystic and a metaphysician. And this was not, as I'm sure is the case for many, this was not something I was seeking to do or to become. It was something that happened through my own greater process of inquiry. But my first greatest process of inquiry was, I want to be healthy. And
Mm.
my body was not healthy. And I had this health crisis that really launched me onto this path. And at one point in that process, I thought that I was going to die. And when that happened, I was only 30. This was, almost 16 years ago. And I made a deal with the divine. And I said, listen, if you let me stay, I'll do whatever you want me to do. Just I can't go out like this. And obviously, we know the end of that story. I was able to stay. But what happened was then I started having all of this healing energy coming out of my hands when I would touch people. I'm a very affectionate person. When I would touch people, they would be like, oh, that pain in my back just went away. What did you do? I didn't
Mm.
do anything. I started having all of this, these psychic abilities that I didn't understand. So all of this started happening to me after this experience, and I didn't know what to do with it. So I had to go on the process and the journey of who am I now? Who am I really? And what's happening? And what can I do with this? How can I be of service? And so that launched me really, 16 years ago from being spirit led. That was really my desire. Was I realized I've been living my life from my mind and my intellect, and now my body is letting me know that is not working. So I've got to do something different. And even though it was super terrifying and traumatic, that was like one of if not the best thing that ever happened to me. And so ever since then I've been doing this work, and it's shifted in all kinds of amazing ways, as you know it does, as we evolve and expand.
Mhm.
But something you said, Vanessa, that I just want to speak to here that I think is so important is that the groundedness of which we know these big esoteric, we have these incredible spiritual experiences. We have to ground it and embody it into the body so that it can be made manifest. And I feel like that is such an important message for these times.
Yes. Yes. Thank you for that. Yeah. So, wow. Okay. Let's go back a bit
Yeah.
to the health crisis experience.
Yeah.
I want to hear about this and I want to give a context as to why. I mean, I'm curious anyway, but what is pretty obvious, and I think a lot of people are tuning into, is the transition that many, many people are going through with not just their own health crisis, but it's a consciousness awakening that's happening. They're really in that larger spiritual identity shift, and it's oftentimes showing up in the body as something's really out of balance here. And so clearly the mainstream paradigm or the old earth paradigm doesn't have the solution for that, right? And so what happened? How did you make that transition? What did you do when you hit those pockets where it's very messy and uncomfortably human? How
Yeah.
did you work with all that?
Oh, I love that. Yeah. So in 2007, it was discovered that I had like this grapefruit sized tumor on my left ovary. So it was causing me a lot of pain. The doctors, I was agnostic at this time. I was all in for Western medicine. I had been on depression, anxiety medication, all the things they give you whenever something comes up, oh, you're sad because you had a breakup. Here, take Lexapro, like, oh, you're having anxiety. Here's some Klonopin, like I was in that model.
Yeah.
So when the surgeon says we have to immediately, the doctor says we have to immediately remove this, I'm like, okay, let's go, let's do this, because I'm in that allopathic model. And that model is, oh, something isn't working, let's invade the body and cut it out or inject shit into it or give you poison, and that'll make it better. But I was in that consciousness.
Yeah.
So they did the surgery, they removed it. They're like, oh, it's great. You're fine. We got everything. You should be fine, but I wasn't. And I got sicker and sicker and like couldn't put weight on. I got very, very, my sister was like, you have bobblehead. We have to do something about this. Like I got so emaciated, even though I was eating, I was having all of these continued issues. And Western medicine was like, you should be fine. It's probably just in your head, whatever. Like oh yeah, you're bleeding all the time. You have inflammation. We don't know why. So I had to go somewhere else, right? Because it wasn't working and my experience was intensifying. So I went to naturopaths. Oh, yes. So I went to naturopaths, Reiki, acupuncture. I mean, I was doing everything and nothing was really shifting me. And then I had a very synchronistic meeting. But I will say, and I'm being guided to share this part, right before this synchronistic meeting, I had sort of a come to Jesus moment where I was like, okay, I'm agnostic. Like I don't know what I believe, but this is not working. My life is not working. And I just said, it was the weirdest thing. I was sitting at my kitchen table and journaling, and I said, you know what? I just want to be spirit led. I'd never heard that term before. I did not know where it came from, but I knew that the way I had been programmed to respond to life with allopathic medicine, with just, how I was living my life was not working. So I offered that up. And maybe within 2 weeks, I had an encounter with a woman who, at like a networking event, who ended up telling me about these healers, these spiritual healers in Brazil that do psychic surgeries. And the minute I heard about it, I said, I'm going. She said, I want to take some people and I'm going this fall. Do you want to go with me? I was like, absolutely. From that moment on, really, my life began to change. And so I went to Brazil. And it is important for me to say, because now that ayahuasca and my microdosing is so trendy, I just want to say this was a totally sober experience. This was completely led by spirit. I was completely sober through this experience. So I had a psychic surgery. And when I had the psychic surgery, I woke up from that and thought I was going to die. I had no life force in my body. I could not move. I was in the middle of Brazil, nowhere Brazil, on a twin bed by myself and no phones, nothing. I didn't even have my Klonopin. I started freaking out. I was like, what am I going to do? And that's when I started praying. And it was the first time I had prayed in a long time. And I made the deal with the divine at that point. And then everything changed from there. Like I mentioned, with the healing energy coming out of my hands, I couldn't walk for about 4 days after that. I was sort of like catatonic. Now I understand, like, a huge part of my ego and my wounding was like basically ripped out. My body fully healed. I had no more symptoms from that moment forward. And because I had made the deal, I now have a spiritual mission that I have to fulfill, and I'm happy to do so. Like I had so many magical experiences. Angels started coming to visit me. I started, communicating with spirit. I was like, what is going on? But there was no way to deny what had happened to me. I was fully healed. Like I thought I was going to die. I was really sick, thought I was going to die. I offered up my life to the divine and everything changed. And I've been doing healing work and channeling books and, doing everything I've been guided to do to assist the shift in consciousness since then. And I'm so honored to be able to do it.
Mm-hmm. So in this space of feeling so divinely connected, because one of the phrases that actually really popped out to me on your site was to be in the world, but not of the world. And that is how I often feel, for better or for worse.
Yes.
And then, and so I'm just wondering, because I feel like did you hit dips? Like, did it get messy? Did you need to continue? Like, what did that look like? Because when you look at the presentation and the energy that you're in now, it's feels like a long way away from almost dying. So how was that process? You know what I'm saying? Like you look like very vital to me. And so how was that process for you of optimizing your vitality and like what did the dips look like and what did you do to help yourself in those moments?
Oh, yeah, I love that question. So immediately once I came back to my environment, I realized my environment was not conducive to these new gifts that I had. So number one, change my environment. I went from living, in a very urban environment in the city, in these apartments that were just like all stacked together. I couldn't energetically tolerate that. So I immediately picked up my whole, sold my car in 3 weeks, got rid of everything, moved to Kauai. And that's where I started. That's where I wrote my first book. I started meditating every single day. I would say that meditation practice really shifted so much for me. I'm a daily meditator since 2008, since that experience. Prior to this, I had tried meditating for the, stress relief benefits. And I was like, I can't do this. My mind is too chattery. Like I can't. But after this experience, just intuitively, I knew if I want to be okay and be in this world but not of it and exist, I've got to meditate daily. I cannot be in a super crowded environment. Also, I started doing very important 12-step work. So I come from a family of addiction. So when I went to Kauai, I joined Coda and Al-Anon. I got a sponsor. I started doing the 12 steps. I started studying online. Like, I think I started with Donna Eden's book, Energy Medicine, trying to understand what had happened. How did my whole body get healed from a psychic surgery, which essentially was a woman praying over me in Portuguese? I don't know what she said, but she did something, and me making a deal with the divine. Like, how does that happen? So I really went deep into that inquiry. I also started a raw food vegan diet being in Kauai. When I came back to the mainland into Oregon, I couldn't sustain that. My body was just too cold. So I had to bring in hot foods. But in Kauai, I did, which I now realize was sort of spirit like detoxing my body, So I was being guided on this journey. I definitely had so many moments of being like, this is nuts. What is happening? Who am I really? Who am I really? Because this person that I thought I was is not who I am. I stopped all use of allopathic medicine, hashtag obviously, but I really dived into natural medicine. And then in 2010, after 2 years of doing deep, 12-step work, which I highly recommend. I know that that's like, we might say 12-step is like a old paradigm, but when you're just, if you don't address those codependent tendencies, like that's the root of all addiction. So the 12 steps are so powerful. I have a girlfriend who's a healer and she does the 12 steps like every 5 years. And she says it takes her deeper and deeper. I haven't done it since that initial time, but I do recommend it highly. In 2010, I was just asking a lot, like, what do I do with this healing energy, coming out of my hands? I want to help, but I can't just go up to people and touch them. Like, I didn't have, that was too nuts for me. I was like, I need something more structured for this. And I was brought the modality Body Talk. And as soon as I had my first session, I was like, this is it. This is what I'm going to eat. And there was like a training 3 weeks later. I signed up for it. And then I went into a huge deep dive into quantum physics and energy medicine. And then I could use this healing energy in a way that felt just more grounded and more like I could understand what was happening. And then, everything then I started being able to serve people one-on-one, and my practice went to waitlist and everything shifted there. But from that moment, 2010 on, I've used energy medicine as my number one form of that and nutrition, right?
Yeah.
Energy medicine, organic nutrition. And daily meditation, if you do that, you're developing yourself spiritually. Your body's going to be vital and vibrant. That doesn't mean you're not going to have stuff come up. You just interact with it totally differently. Just so differently. You understand everything as consciousness. Everything.
Yeah.
So now we're not like bad body and why is my body doing, we're just like, we're in union with our body. And that's the real path, I believe, at this time.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And it's reminding me, it's so interesting to me when we talk, because we start to hear our story in the other, the storytelling is medicine, I believe, I strongly believe. And so it's helping me remember when I first got into energy healing and energy medicine. It was actually 1998, 99. And I was in college at the time, and I did a weekend workshop on energy tools. And the teacher, who happened to be a teacher of mine in for other classes that she did that were totally unrelated, she came up to me during this workshop and she said, I want to work with you. I want you to be my apprentice. You know what you're doing. And I was like, but I did not consciously know what I was doing, but I was feeling and experiencing a lot of sensation through my hands, and was able to just read people. And that was something I could do all of my life, but I had never been recognized by someone outside of my, social circle, and whatnot. And so it was that journey that really began to open up for me, like those same questions, like what exactly is happening here? What is our body capable of? And yeah, and that question, who am I really? And that is the big question that I personally keep sitting with in terms of the spiritual identity upgrade that is wanting to come through and is emerging for the collective right now.
Yes.
And I'll share, I haven't, loads more questions for you, but I just wanted to share one more brief story with you. I was sitting with a mentor of mine, I want to say it was 2008 or 2009. And she was talking to me about cosmic, galactic, much bigger energetic context than we deal with on the day-to-day, like on planet Earth. And then I apparently had a look on my face like, it's going over. It's right over. Like I feel like I'm tracking you. Same thing as with this other teacher. Like there's a recognition there. Like there's something they recognize in me and something I'm recognizing in myself. And yet it hadn't emerged yet to my consciousness in such a way that I could say, I know what this is. And so she could kind of tell by the look on my face that it was registering, not registering. And she just looked at me and said, you don't remember who you are, do you? And it stopped me in my tracks. And that it has still, when I have these moments when I feel like I also get caught in the illusion, or I choose to, kind of go back to sleep in the moment, I hear her voice and I hear her saying, do you remember yet? And it's just, it's so I often think like, what would it be like if we remembered? What would life look like? And given that the new earth paradigm is coming through us, we are it, we are the paradigm shift. What can we do as healers, as those of us looking to optimize vitality from this larger picture perspective? What can we do to foster this remembering? So that's the question I want to pose to you now, is in your own journey and what's come through you, what do you suggest to help activate that for people, to really activate their remembering?
Oh, this conversation makes me so teary, because that's really like the question that has been with me for so long. And I believe the question I'm answering for myself and assisting others in answering, which is, who am I really?
Yeah.
And so to answer like this dialogue that we're having, foundational is a daily meditation practice. And there's a lot of distortion about what that looks like. So I really like to clear that up for people. 11 to 22 minutes a day, guided meditation is totally fine. You do not have to sit in silence unless you love doing that.
Yeah.
So I recommend guided meditation to start every single day. Most people who are listening to this podcast and who are in my swirl have meditated and meditate maybe a few times a week or whatever, but a daily practice of consistency. We need to build the momentum of the frequency of connection with the higher self, and meditation is the best way to do it. Now, energy medicine is an important complement to that, and very, very important as well. But foundationally, what can people do? Meditate every day. Energy medicine at minimum once a month. Minimum, if you're really going through stuff, twice a month or more. Like when I'm going through big shifts, I'm twice a month or more of energy medicine. When when things are cool, it's maintenance, 4 to 6 weeks. Great. Every single day I have practices that are energy medicine based. What I'm talking about when you have sessions from another practitioner. So to create this, because like you said, Vanessa, so perfectly, we are creating. the golden age, the new earth, whatever we want to call it, heaven on earth. So to do that, we have to come into union with ourselves and with the earth and with each other. Has to happen. So I have been guided to create training programs that support awakened beings in having this experience of coming into inner union, union with the earth. And then what I found is that then once you come into inner union and union with the earth, coming into union with each other is a lot more in flow than if we just try to, kind of cut corners there. So, and then the organic nutrition is so important. In 2020, my spiritual team came to me and said, we got to make the focus the physical body, because everything has to manifest through the physical body. The reason we incarnated into bodies is so that we could create this new paradigm and this new earth. So kind of the older spirituality is like, oh, it's a meat suit, you're not your body, blah, blah, blah. Okay, true, you're not just your body, but you are in a body for a reason, and that body is communicating with you and giving you important feedback. So when we have stuff come up in the body, that's not something to try to get rid of. That's something to be present with, to receive the wisdom that is innate in our body, and then to take action to shift the reality. So that's, to your point, Vanessa, this is one of the main ways we come into inner union is energy medicine, and that meditation practice, because that's really allowing you to connect in with your body at a deep level. And then in meditation, you're giving your higher self the ability to communicate with you, and your higher self is communicating with you through your body. So the energy work I do, that's what we're doing. We're communicating with the higher self to find out what's going on in the body and what is needed so that we can live this vital, radiant, abundant life on earth in our bodies. When we're not in our bodies, that's easier, but we're in bodies. So this is really important. And to speak to your question about who am I really, I just created a soul origins meditation because this is the question. I started a book series called The Angelics. And my spiritual team is saying it's so important that we know who we really are now so that we can do what we really came here to do.
Yes. So I've got 3 different directions that I want to head in here. Can I hear your take on using our hands as healers to start to create the balance that we're seeking in our bodies? This is something that I say often, that our hands are healers. I know that it's, we're walking around with the capacity to create incredible transformation for ourselves. And we have no idea because we're distracted. And so I think there needs to be a more amplified message around our hands being healers and our hands working in partnership with the rest of our body to move energy. So I want to put that out there. I'd love your take. And I would love to bring in this other piece that is also sitting there, which it would fall under the category of shadow work, or I also want to say like it's very intricately linked with what I call the underbelly of the New Age movement, which is spiritual bypassing and feeling like you have to fake it till you make it and be happy and high vibe all the time. And the way that I see it is your hands can be the bridge, right? Like instead of being in the mind and being in this space of like, oh, I just got to raise my frequency, or oh, that's your projection, or oh, like all of these things, these sort of tricky little psychology, mental gymnastics that we do, which is where I would say the meditation would absolutely come in handy, because there's a both a software and a hardware rewiring that's going on there. But how we can, instead of pledging our allegiance to the gymnastics that happens, and the, perhaps like sneaky little ways that we are trying to be fake happy, and instead say, let's just step out of that conversation and be with our body and be with our hands as facilitators and activators and alchemizers, right? So that those are a lot of seeds that I just threw out there, but that's what's coming up for me as I'm listening to you talk about this. So I'm curious your take on spiritual bypassing, shadow work, and your hands as healers.
Oh, we could be here for hours, right? This is so juicy. And you know what you're bringing together for me, Vanessa, which I love, is the hands as healers, because I've never thought about that. Although, hello, right? The hands coming, the energy coming through my hands, but also when I started channeling, I'm typing, and
Yeah.
I just close my eyes, it's coming through my hands. And then in my Love Territory Guide certification, they gave us an attunement with our hands.
Mhm.
So you are absolutely bringing this together for me in like such a powerful way. In my other certification, we use our hands. Like I had never put it together that it is really the power of the hands, which are an extension of the Sacred Heart. They're of the heart, which is connected to the soul, which is connected to the spirit. Like, thank you for that gift. I'm sure your listeners already know this, but I'm getting this gift right now, and I'm like loving this because it is happening through the hands, which is happening through the heart, which is happening through the soul, which is happening through the spirit.
Yeah.
So thank you for really putting that together for me, because that's certainly been how it's worked for me, but I had never seen that clearly. And now as we're talking, there's like flaming heat coming out of my hand.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
And so beautiful. To speak to like the spiritual bypassing and the shadow work, I joke and say, for years being spiritual and being a healer was not trendy. But suddenly we
Oh, I
got
know.
trendy.
I know.
Go on social media and it is hack city. It's like, what is
Mhm.
happening?
Yes.
And for, you've been on this path for such a long time. I've been on the path for almost 16 years. We're just like, wait, what? What is
I
going on?
know.
I
I know.
never thought this would get trendy. And the twisted nature of it getting trendy is that it gets all twisted and distorted, right? Because
Yeah.
people are using it for nefarious purposes. And of course, from a logical standpoint, I can see, of course, the healing agenda, the spiritual agenda would get hijacked too. I mean, that's just something that happens. And it's part of being on earth. And my guides say, being on earth is like an obstacle course, choose your own adventure, where in the world is Carmen Sandiego experience. So we got to be zigging where they zag, and there's going to be stuff that comes up, and we've got to raise our consciousness to go to the higher place. So the notion that we could be here and that we would just be in one emotional state the whole time, which is
No.
everything feels good, is ridiculous. I mean, my team, and I know you know this too, like we came for the full experience. My beloved died earlier than I wanted him to, 6 years ago. And I'm like in the throes of grief. And my team is like, and you came for this too. And I'm like, God, like all the things we came for, all of the emotion, the bandwidth of emotions that we can experience. And we did not come to ignore those or suppress them so that then they could come out in twisted and distorted ways, which is what happens, right? Like a very easy example of this would be road rage. You know, people are not being with their sacred rage, with their anger. They're not being present to those sensations in their body. And so then it leaks out in these distorted ways. All abuse is an example of energy and emotions that have not been properly felt, traumas that have not properly been dealt with, leaking out. So when we see, like, you know, spiritual gurus and teachers, you know, being accused of all these different things, or priests, so, you know, we see what's happening, it's because they are not being fully present for all that this human experience has for us. And when you do that, it'll come out all sorts of twisted up.
Yeah.
So being available, and I had a big shift for myself in 2015, because I was very much like, when I started this path, um, you know, it was 2012 was when I went full time with my healing practice. And so it was a lot of like, manifest this, manifest that. You know, I was in a manifesting consciousness. Now, that is a state of consciousness, but it is not the highest state of consciousness. And this is very important for people to know, because, you know, it's all this flashy, like, oh, manifest, that's, you know, you're just getting started when you get into manifesting. You know, we are creatrixes, we are creators. There's a whole, you know, we're divine beings. There's so much more beyond manifesting. But I started there. And in 2015, I had this huge shift where, you know, my book was optioned as a movie. I had a publisher. I was speaking on stages. My practice was 6 months booked out, you know, like all the success, worldly success markers. And it started feeling super hollow. And I was like, oh shit, it's not about the money. It's not about the celebrity. It's not about any of this. And my paradigm got blown up, and my team said, now we're going to get to the good stuff. You're going to feel I was like, I don't want to feel every, what are you talking about? And they literally brought me this, you know, process that I now do every day and teach to others, of being fully available for everything that's there for you and not judging any of it. And it's so empowering, right? So that year, 2015, was then I started channeling. That was the next phase of my work. But I stepped out of that manifestor consciousness and into a higher state of consciousness. I love Michael Bernard Beckwith's work on this. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but he talks about 4 stages of consciousness. And we start in victim, and then we go to manifestor, then we go to channeling, then we go to being the presence of the divine. So we have to do that. And I lovingly and jokingly, but not jokingly, tell, you know, people, like, if you see it in the mainstream, it's old news. It's probably been hijacked and twisted. Like, don't get caught up in it, essentially. Like, there's no shortcuts. You got to meditate. You got to feel your feelings. You got to do the energy work. You got to do it. That's just the deal.
Yeah. Yeah, I relate to that and understand it well. I didn't have the same exact story, but a couple years ago, I also went through a phase where things were really blossoming, and I was like, finally, because I felt very much, you know, having been in the field for a while and finally hitting this place of this sort of sweet spot of like, this is what I've been wanting. And then all of the stuff that was really underneath the surface for me, all of the old unprocessed, unintegrated, traumatic types of energetic patterning that I have carried for my lineage, that I have walked through in various phases of my life. It was like, the journey isn't, I know this feels good. I know you're enjoying it, but it's actually about wholeness. And it's about being able to show up to the space of your life and the people in your life with presence. And that can really be incredibly activating and also incredibly triggering, to have deep enough roots to be with how life is presenting, whether it's internally or externally. But I feel like that is the call right now for the collective, is one, discernment, right? So we know what we can even, what's worth paying attention to. That's the game, the energetic game at play. It's where we're putting our point of focus. But also, as we put our point of focus, are we there for it? Like, are we actually showing up for what is happening? And it, when all the feelings come up, and can we organically be with what's actually there versus the packed backlog of what was there? And so I feel like the last couple of years have been like, I think I explained it to someone. It kind of felt like God took me by my feet and just sort of dragged me up and down the stairs a couple of times and said, "You good? You're still here? Great." So I feel, I on the one hand, part of me feels a little battered. And on the other hand, I feel more clear, more grounded, more myself, more discerning, more connected, and more aligned than ever. And very, very unwilling to play any other version of myself than what feels truly aligned with the divine. And that, I mean, I feel like this is a daily evolution process that is on an accelerated, like it's moving, the energy is moving fast. But I
Yes.
feel like I'm meeting myself in new ways every single day. And so yeah, bless you for sharing all that and for hearing my side of the story as well. Um, what else do I want to ask you? Oh, I know. Hold on, I wrote it down.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Vanessa, because the trap of the matrix is that we think it's about success in the worldly sense.
Yeah.
And like that is just a false summit. It is just a trap that it sounds like. And the more I talk with those of us on this path, we all have those. And
Yeah.
we're like, oh, this is, it's happening. And then, oh, no, false summit. We got to go so much deeper, so much deeper. It's all manipulated anyway. The social media, like it's all of that is manipulated for the purpose of the agenda's programming. So there is no need to get caught up in any of that. One of the greatest freedoms I experienced was ceasing all care about what anyone else thought of me, how many likes, how many shares, how many blah, blah, blahs. And really, I in 2015, I was like, I'll work at Trader Joe's, if that's what you want me to do. Like, I don't care anymore. That was the greatest liberation of my life, to not care and to just know that this is about me evolving my consciousness. And when one of us does it, it is more powerful than a million hacks on Instagram doing whatever they're doing, right? So this is what's so important. And you'll never see that in the mainstream. You'll never see that recognized. Not yet, anyway. I know some people believe, when we're fully in the golden age, it'll be a different story. But so many people are so caught up in that trap. And what we have to recognize is that developing our consciousness is more powerful than any, like you are affecting, Vanessa, billions of people. And you'll never see that in numbers from the matrix. The artificial matrix is never going to show you that. And that is the power of connected to source consciousness. And this is where our technology is the most powerful technology.
Yeah.
All the other stuff is just smoke and mirrors. And we have to remember that. Our alignment with source is the most powerful YouTube, Instagram, Facebook ever. And when you do that, when you align with your higher self and with the earth, you are shifting the collective consciousness. And you don't need the artificial matrix to tell you that. And they won't tell you that. But you don't need it because you're connected to source.
100% agree with this. Yes. Which, what you said just a moment ago also matches with exactly what I wrote down, which is something that I found on your website that I read. And I was like, exactly exactly this. So I didn't want to complete our conversation today without you speaking to this. Here's the buildup. You're like, what is she
I
gonna
know. I'm
say?
like, what is this? I'm scanning. Like, what's on my website? What did I say?
You said you were talking about the advanced technology body and the connection to Earth. And you just mentioned that just a few moments ago as well. And so it was a perfect tracking with what I wanted to speak to as kind of one of the closing out points of our conversation is um, what is your model? How do you see the advanced technology of our body? And why is the connection to Earth so important for our vitality?
I want to say I feel like sobbing when you
No.
ask that question, because it's probably the most important thing that we could be talking about. So thank you for presencing this and bringing it in. So what I have been shown through my connection with Source is that our bodies are the most advanced technology next to Earth. Earth is a super advanced technology, and she is her own spirit, her own living being, and we are also living beings upon her, and we are also an advanced technology. We are an advanced technology that goes with her, right? These bodies don't show up on other planes of consciousness. These bodies are only here on Earth, and that's because our consciousness, I know, I'm chilled.
I know.
Our consciousness,
Felt that.
yeah, I'm like heat and chills. Our consciousness like locks in with the Earth's consciousness because we are of her and she is of us. We are there's a union here.
Yeah.
So everything, and this was huge for me when my team showed me this, but you look at everything that humans are trying to create, and it's all trying to mimic the technology of the body. What are the computers? They're trying to mimic the technology of the human brain. What are all the AI? They're trying to mimic the human creation, but they will never be able to do it because we are of Source, we are of the Earth. It's the most powerful technology. You think about what your body does every single day, all day for 100 years. If it's going really well for you, like that's you can, there's no human creation. You look at skyscrapers, you look at computers, nothing is as beautiful. Look at this flower behind us. Look at us. Like nothing is more beautiful. Look at out our window, right? Like nothing is more beautiful than what is created by Source. We are the highest technology, but we have been distracted, as you said, Vanessa, from our light and from our technology and the advanced nature of it. So inner union with Earth has to happen. Has to happen for us to live in our full radiance and vitality. Has to happen for us to live in our full fulfillment and satisfaction. You don't give a care about social media or numbers or how much money you're making or the size of your house or how whatever people care about the materialistic things when you are connected to you and when you are connected to the Earth, because then you have something that is more valuable than anything humans can create. So I'll leave it there. Did I answer the question?
Yeah, oh God, yeah, beautifully. Yeah, beautifully. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, I would love to continue talking for the next hour, but I'm gonna pull it in and close this out. And I would love for you to share if there's anything specifically that you are currently offering that you want to highlight, where people can find you online, any of that good stuff. And so yeah.
Thank you so much, Vanessa. This is such an amazing gathering together of the divine. So thank you for creating the sacred space. You can find me at sacred-spirituality.org, and I have free meditations and transmissions and just a wealth of information that you can tap into to feel if this and what I'm offering is a resonance. Right now, my focus has really been my team has really had me focus on working with other beings, awakened beings, and assisting them in being spiritual healers on earth. So right now, I've mentioned it previously, my Love Territory Guide certification is really where we're focusing, because it gives us this attunement with our hands, and it unifies us with the earth and really brings us into this incredible harmony and partnership with the earth. And it's absolutely transformative, especially with all of the hijacking of the earth and the pollution that's happening, the geoengineering that's happening. We're really being given a spiritual technology to partner with the earth to transcend that through the frequency of love, which I'm obviously so passionate about and brings me to tears, because it's just, I can feel the power of the earth and the power of us, and it's so immense. So if you are feeling this conversation, I would say definitely check out my Love Territory Guide certification and see if it's a match for you, because it will give you the technology and the attunement to really come into this greater union with the earth. And a really amazing byproduct is greater love for yourself. So many of my students and participants have said, like, oh, I just like have this more fierce love for myself since partnering with the earth. But that's like the reciprocal nature of the relationship, like that she gives to us as we give to her. So yeah, sacred-spirituality.org to find me. And for those who are feeling the resonance around that training, feel free to reach out to me. I'm doing something I've never done before. I'm doing calls with people to make sure it's a match, because this is such important work. We want to make sure that it's the right frequency match. So thank you so much, Vanessa. Thank you for your amazing work on Earth. I'm just so grateful, like our network of light. I'm on the Oregon coast. I know you're in another part of the world, like this amazing network of light that we've created here. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I'm so grateful that you came here today, that we had this conversation. And yeah, it's been really rich. It's been really rich. And this is the kind of richness that I think that we're all truly after. So
So true.
yeah, big blessing to you and to everyone that was tuning in on this podcast today. Looking forward to being back again for the Vitality series and the Check the Energy podcast with more guests. Take care, and thanks so much for tuning in.